This is the grocery list that I used for this week. As you can see on the bottom, I had to take off the cornmeal right from the start. That would have been nice with the chili and some of the refried bean recipes. That would have been $31.67. Of course, when I got to the store, they did not have the 10 pounds of chicken leg quarters, which were supposed to be $3.99, and they were not issuing rain checks. So I ended up buying 2 pounds of chicken breast at $1.99 a pound. Other things were a little higher too. I guess that's just a sign of the times. And as you see, I actually spent $32.42. Now, had I decided to not get the kidney beans and get a smaller bag of rice, a 1 pound bag of rice was $1. The 3 pound bag was $2, so I saved a little bit there. And then the eggs, I spent extra on the eggs because instead of a dozen, I got 18. You know, again, this is a starter list. What I'm attempting to do is just shop as if I had nothing else in the cabinet. You know, a lot of times I'll see, oh, we went shopping for $30, but then they start pulling the sauces and the spices out of the cabinet, and that's a little bit of cheating. When I cook, I will show you some additional ingredients that you could put in there, but this will start you out on your first week. Next week we'll also spend $30, but I will get the cornmeal then so I can make corn muffins. I will buy some more spices, and hopefully they'll have some better prices on the meat. This is a week's worth of meals for a family of 5. I was shooting for $30. It ended up being $32.40. If I had gotten one less canned tomato, just had the angel hair pasta with garlic and oil on it, that's an awful lot of carbs, so with not much more to it. And unfortunately, it's very hard to find dried beans and pasta right now during the COVID quarantine. Everybody seems to be stocking up. But I probably could have done without either the pinto beans or the kidney beans. I did want to do, let's see, a refried bean quesadilla, and I want to make a chili, but I could have done without a bag, which would have brought it down to $30.29. So I am going to do a week's worth of food. That is 7 breakfast, that is 7 lunches, and 7 dinners. There'll be some snacks in there too. A lot of cooking, but you can get by on a very limited budget and have a pretty varied and healthy meal. I'm going to start prepping the dried beans. This is a full pound of the black beans. There'll be 3 meals this week. I'm putting them into some water. I like to soak them with a little bit of baking soda. This way you don't get so gassy when you eat them. You could also cook them right in the water immediately, but I find they cook faster and they're just turn out nicer for everybody in the room with you if you soak them overnight. That is a pound, so that will be for the bean chili, that will be for the rice and beans, and that will also be for the black bean and corn soup. In my crock pot, I'm also going to soak some kidney beans. So to make chili, it'll be a 3 bean chili. There's kidney beans. I'm going to put in about a half a cup of the pinto beans. The rest of the pinto beans I will soak so I can make the refried bean enchiladas. And again, I'm putting in just a pinch of baking powder or baking soda so that when you eat them, you're not so gassy. Just, again, makes it more pleasant for everybody. And there you go. I'll let these soak for a couple of hours, up until 18 hours, so I could always do this tomorrow. The beans will double in size, and then when you cook them, they'll increase in size again. So for every cup of beans dried, you will end up with 3 cups of cooked beans. Good morning. Starting out with the 3-bean chili. Put it in the crock pot so it would be ready when I come home for dinner tonight. The beans soaked overnight. You need to have 1 pound of dried beans. As you saw a little bit earlier, I put in a pinch of baking soda, which I like to do, and I like to soak them overnight. So this is 1 pound of beans soaked overnight. They were drained. To this I'm adding, there's 5 cups of water, 4 cups in there already. I am putting in 2 cups of the tomato puree. I am putting in a 1/4 cup of oil. And in here, I have a 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I have a tablespoon of chili powder. I put in a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. I put in a teaspoon of garlic powder. There's a teaspoon of cumin, and I will add that to this mixture. And I will have dinner when I come home. And this will actually be 2 dinners. You can serve it over rice. If you want, you can make cornbread. You know, again, just for the purposes of this video, I am trying to stick to what we had picked up on our $30 weekly grocery list. Okay, now to go with our really awesome homemade chili, we're going to make some biscuits. First, we have to preset the oven for 400. Okay, I've got my pan greased, I've got my flour out. So, it starts out with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. What we're going to do is mix that really well so you can distribute the baking powder throughout your mix. Okay, and then we have 3/4 cup of our homemade mayonnaise. Again, mayonnaise is just oil and eggs. We had both of that. And I'm going to mix this really well until it forms either a dough ball, at least so it's mixed throughout. Now generally you would use butter and milk for these recipes. But since we only had $30 to spend this week, there is no milk and there is no butter. Okay, so this has all been mixed until it turns into a crumbly dough. If you do not want to use the mayonnaise, 3/4 cup of mayonnaise, you can use a 1/2 cup of very cold butter. A pastry cutter may work a little bit better. You can use your hands, you know, whatever you have. It doesn't have to be fancy to make really wonderful food. I'm going to put in, this is a cup of water. I'm not going to add it all in because the mayonnaise seems to have added some moisture in here. And then I'm going to mix this up until it forms a dough ball. I'm going to put maybe another 2 tablespoons of flour on here so it didn't stick to the mat. I'm going to fold it over a couple of times. They don't suggest that you push it down too much, so fold it over so you get all these nice air pockets in it. And then let's see here, we'll keep it at about 1 inch as far as the depth goes. And then we are going to take the bottle. Because I don't have a cookie cutter, you can use a 3-inch cookie cutter. I don't have one. And I'm going to cut them out with a jar. So you see you get nice round biscuits. This recipe is supposed to make 12. So everybody will get one with their chili. And then there should be enough left tomorrow for breakfast so we can make egg sandwiches. So I'm going to finish this up so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so this recipe made exactly 12 biscuits. Again, it was not a cup of water, it was only 2 tablespoons because the mayonnaise, the homemade mayonnaise, added so much more moisture into the batter. So it's going to go into our preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I'll turn it sideways and we'll see how that chili tastes. It smells absolutely delicious. Well, this looks absolutely delicious. This is the 3-bean chili that we put in the crock pot this morning. I topped it off with a little bit of the cheese that we picked up. If you have tomatoes or sour cream or avocado, you could always add it to this. And then here are the biscuits. They're absolutely light and flaky. They look so good. I don't think I'm going to use this batch for the egg sandwiches that I was going to be making for breakfast. They're a little bit too small. So I think instead of using the 3-inch cookie cutter, I would go with a 4 or 5. I'd go much bigger. This way you can make a decent breakfast sandwich, especially for the bigger eaters in the family. So I'm going to try this. Oh, that is so good. The beans are very tender. There's a lot of flavor going throughout. We've got next on our list of meals this week the enchiladas. I have mixed together it's basically just flour, water. You can put in seasonings. Feel free to put in cilantro. You can put in oregano, chili powder, whatever you think your family would like. And it's all about the flavor when you're on a real tight budget. Pour that in there like a pancake. There is no baking powder in here, otherwise it would puff up and we would have pancakes. And we'll just wait until we get 5, 6, 7 of these made up, and then we'll put in the filling. We have a couple of our enchilada shells cooked. You can also use the pre-made shells. You can use enchilada shells, you can use soft taco shells, you know, whatever you might have, but the flour and water is good in a pinch. What I did is I mashed up the pinto beans. Everything has been seasoned, right from the flour for the shells to the pinto beans. I could have whipped them up. Now you don't need to put rice in there. I did this as a filler. You can put in hamburger, you can put in chicken, you can put in just the pinto beans that you cooked up, and then you take these and roll it up. It's pretty easy. It's a pretty quick meal too. I'm finding that as I pour these in a circular motion, they're coming out rounder and rounder. My first 2 were a little lopsided. The second 2 are nice, but I guess once you get them all wrapped up, no one will even notice. I'm going to put a little more cheese. I put these back into the pan so I can just pop it in the oven. Now again, this is the enchilada sauce. Which is really our leftover chili juice. I'm going to top it off with what's left of the cheese. That looks really good. I did put a little more seasoning on it. I didn't feel like I quite had enough seasoning in the batter. So, and that's it. And what we're going to do is pop it in the oven at 400. Let it bake until everything is bubbling, and that's it. there you have it. Now this recipe that I demonstrated was only half of the recipe. It does make 10 to 12 of the shells. You can make your own shells. You can do the thicker ones where you put in oil and you can roll out the flour and put it in. But this one was quick and easy, especially if you're a working person and you need to come home and put meal on the table very quickly. And this is just going to be really nice for a filling, healthy dinner. It's loaded with fiber and protein, and it's tasty. Welcome to June in New York. It is 58 degrees in the house. I can't even pretend to understand this weather. So what we're going to be doing is making the chili quiche, which is absolutely delicious and loaded with protein. First, we need to go and set the oven at 350 degrees to preheat. I have 4 eggs, which I am going to break into our mixing bowl. That's a DIY trick. Somebody said that if you use the eggshell to take out the shells, they come out a lot easier. I'm going to scramble the eggs just for a minute or two to kind of mix them up and make sure I didn't leave any more eggshells in there. I guess this is what happens when it's 58 degrees on a Sunday morning and you don't have a cup of coffee before you do a video. Yeah, it looks like. To the 4 scrambled eggs, I add a 1/4 cup of water. You can also add a 1/4 cup of milk or cream. Makes it absolutely decadent to any quiche. When I was younger and growing up, my grandmother called this Italian pie. And she would put in Monterey Jack cheese, mozzarella, salami, pepperoni, and add a lot of oregano. It was absolutely delicious. So to our egg mix, we are going to put a cup of the chili, which I saved from our batch of chili that we made the other night. And we're going to add to that 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of the cheese. If you don't have shredded cheese, you can add dry cheese. If you don't have dry cheese, you can do it without. I have made this without any cheese. There's also a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic and a teaspoon of salt, which doesn't want to come out of the bottom of my container. The cheese must have been pretty moist. Okay. And, you know, again, to this, you can add your spices. You can add peppers if you have them. You can add cilantro if you have it. The best thing to do is really get those gardens in. Use your great homemade compost. Get an inexpensive packet of seeds at the dollar store and get your spice garden in. You know, if you plant perennial seeds, that's wonderful. You'll get oregano and sage. I believe rosemary is also a perennial. I will have to do a fact check on that. So, and it's as simple as that. This will make enough for 2 breakfast meals. Now, I don't like to use a lot of flour, just for personal health reasons, so I just grease the bottom of my container. If you would like a pie crust, there's an absolutely wonderful crust recipe that was passed down in my family, and it is a cup of flour, 2 tablespoons of water, and it can be either a 1/2 stick of margarine or butter or a 1/4 cup of oil, and you mix that in and press it on the sides. You can make it a sweet dish if you're making pies, and to that you can do a cup of flour, a 1/2 cup of sugar, and a 1/2 stick of butter or margarine. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, have my cup of coffee, and then we'll see how it turns out in about 30 to 40 minutes. This smells absolutely delicious. I had my first cup of coffee. I do know, and some of you will probably note, that coffee was not on the 30-day list, you can make other things. I mean, you can go out. If there's dandelions, I will post a recipe for dandelion tea. If you have tea or anything left over, you can have that. Again, I'm trying to stick as closely as I can to the $30 a week. I was going to be doing some dandelion coffee. So what I did is I just I cut up the roots, and again I do have a gas stove with a pilot in it, and I put it on my really crappy pan. But I didn't get a lot of them because I had just picked enough dandelions to eat with dinner. So these are some of the roots. Now I've seen a couple of different videos on how you can do this. Some people take the wet roots before they've dried them out, and they've pureed them, and then they put them on a baking sheet. What I did again is that I didn't have a lot of them, so I just put them in and let them sit overnight. It's going to take a while. They're hopping around. So what I'll do is I will put this into a tea leaf ball. I have a silver one, and put it in some boiling water and let it steep. And this will make a nice cup of, they call it dandelion coffee. I would call it a tea, but whatever, it's absolutely delicious, and it's very good for you, and it's free. You can go outside and forage and pretty much bring in some meals that'll sustain you.